Hello, everyone. Sorry about yesterday. Got busy cleaning off computers to make sure we could hand them out to all of the students. Um, some of you may recognize this. This is my classroom. I'm doing some webinars today and grabbing some things, so I thought I'd uh, do this short one here at work. I am using the illustrated copy. We only have a little bit left in this chapter, so this first one today is going to be a little short. I will post another one a little later today. But let's pick up where we left off. Gryffindor had just beat Ravenclaw at Quidditch, and Harry had cast his Patronus and scared the daylights out of Malfoy, Crabbe, and Goyle, who were pretending to be Dementors. It felt as though they had already won the Quidditch Cup. The party went on all day and well into the night. Fred and George Weasley disappeared for a couple hours and returned with armfuls of bottles of butterbeer, pumpkin fizz, and several bags of honeydew sweets. "How did you do that?" squealed Angelina Johnson, as George started throwing peppermint toads into the crowd. "With a little help from Moony, Wormtail, Padfoot, and Prongs," Fred muttered in Harry's ear. Only one person wasn't joining in the festivities. Hermione, incredibly, was sitting in a corner, attempting to read an enormous book entitled Home Life and Social Habits of British Muggles. Harry broke away from the table where Fred and George had started juggling butterbeer bottles and went over to her. "Did you even come to the match?" he asked her. "Of course I did," said Hermione in a strangely high-pitched voice, not looking up. "And I'm very glad we won, and I think you did really well, but I need to read this by Monday." "Come on, Hermione, come and have some food," Harry said, looking over at Ron and wondering whether he was in a good enough mood to bury the hatchet. "I can't, Harry. I still have got 422 pages to read," said Hermione, now sounding slightly hysterical. "Anyway," she glanced over at Ron, "he doesn't want me to join." There was no arguing with this, as Ron chose that moment to say loudly, "If Scabbers hadn't been eaten, he could have had some of these fudge flies. He really used to like them." Hermione burst into tears. Before Harry could say or do anything, she had tucked the enormous book under her arm and, still sobbing, ran towards the staircase to the girls' dormitory and out of sight. "Can't you give her a break?" Harry asked Ron quietly. "No," said Ron flatly. "If she just acted like she was sorry. But she'll never admit she was wrong, Hermione. She's still acting like Scabbers had gone on holiday or something." The Gryffindor party only ended when Professor McGonagall turned up in her tartan dressing gown and hairnet at 1 in the morning to insist that they all went to bed. Harry and Ron climbed the stairs to their dormitory, still discussing the match. At last, exhausted, Harry climbed into bed, twitched the hangings of his four-poster shut to block out a ray of moonlight, lay back, and felt himself almost instantly drifting off to sleep. He had a very strange dream. He was walking through a forest, his firebolt over his shoulder, following something silvery white. It was winding its way through the trees ahead, and he could only catch glimpses of it between the leaves. Anxious to catch up with it, he sped up, but as he moved faster, so did his quarry. Harry broke into a run, and ahead he heard hooves gathering speed. Now he was running flat out, and ahead he could hear galloping. Then he turned a corner into a clearing and, "Ah! No!" Harry woke as suddenly as though he had been hit in the face. Disoriented in the total darkness, he fumbled with his hangings. He could hear movements around him, and Seamus Finnegan's voice from the other side of the room. "What's going on?" Harry thought he heard the dormitory door slam, and at last, finding the divide in his curtains, he ripped them back, and at the same moment Dean Thomas lit the lamp. Ron was sitting up in bed, the hangings torn from one side, a look of utmost terror on his face. Black! Sirius Black! With the knife!" "What?" "Here, just now, slashed the curtains, woke me up." "You sure you weren't dreaming, Ron?" said Dean. "Look at the curtains! I tell you, he was here!" They all scrambled out of bed. Harry reached the dormitory door first, and they sprinted back down the staircase. Doors opened behind them, and sleepy voices called after them. Who shouted? What are they doing? The common room was lit by the glow of the dying fire, still littered with debris from the party. It was deserted. Are you sure you weren't dreaming, Ron? I'm telling you, I saw him. What's all this noise? Professor McGonagall told us to go to bed. A few of the girls had come down their staircase, pulling on dressing gowns and yawning. Boys, too, were reappearing. Excellent. Are we carrying on? Said Fred Weasley brightly. Everyone back upstairs, said Percy, hurrying into the common room and pinning his head boy badge to his pajamas as he spoke. Percy, Sirius Black, said Ron faintly, in our dormitory, with a knife, woke me up. The common room went very, very still. Nonsense, said Percy, looking startled. You had too much to eat, Ron. Had a nightmare. I'm telling you. Now, really, this is enough. Professor McGonagall was back. She slammed the portrait behind her as she entered the common room and stared furiously around. I am delighted that Gryffindor won the match, but this is getting ridiculous. Percy, I expected better of you. I certainly didn't authorize this, Professor, said Percy, puffing himself up indignantly. I was just telling them all to get back to bed. My brother Ron here had a nightmare. It wasn't a nightmare, Ron yelled. Professor, I woke up and Sirius Black was standing over me holding a knife. Professor McGonagall stared at him. Don't be ridiculous, Weasley. How could he have possibly got through the portrait hole? Ask him, said Ron, pointing a shaking finger at the back of Sir Cadogan's picture. Ask him if he saw. Glaring suspiciously at Ron, Professor McGonagall pushed the portrait back open and went outside. The whole common room listened with bated breath. Sir Cadogan, did you just let a man enter Gryffindor Tower? Certainly, good lady, cried Sir Cadogan. There was a stunned silence, both inside and outside the common room. You did, said Professor McGonagall. But the password. He had them, said Sir Cadogan proudly. Had the whole week's worth, my lady. Read 'em off a little piece of paper. Professor McGonagall pulled herself back through the portrait hole to face the stunned crowd. She was white as chalk. Which person, she said, her voice shaking, which abysmally foolish person wrote down the week's passwords and left them lying around? There was utter silence, broken by the smallest of terrified squeaks. Neville Longbottom, trembling from head to fluffy slippered toe, raised his hand slowly into the air. So that is the end of this chapter. I will pick up with chapter 14, Snape's Grudge, later today. Hope you're enjoying these. I'll be doing them as long as I can. So I will see everybody later today. Bye.